Good afternoon to all of you. CSR Security Sigasa online live webinar, the name of Connect with the Scientist. On this series, this is the seventh live webinar. Today we have Dr. S. Vasudevan. Professor Vasudevan Subramanian is a senior principal scientist at the CSR Central Electrochemical Research Institute and professor at the Academy of Scientific and Innovative Research. It's called ACSIR, New Delhi. Through his creative, interdisciplinary and cutting-edge research, Vasudevan has made extensive fundamental and applied contributions to the field of water electrolysis, water treatment, inorganic chemicals, and storage batteries. His research has focused on novel electrocatalysis, electrolyzer, anode cathode, electrochemical water treatment systems, anode cathode for magnesium reserve batteries, and synthesis of inorganic oxidants. He has also been actively engaged in innovative engineering of film-based electrolyzer, magnesium organic reserve batteries, electrocoagulation, and electrofendon water treatment systems, and electrolysis system for production of inorganic accidents, chemicals, etc. His assiduous involvement in research on electrochemistry earned his Doctor of Science. It's a honorary doctorate and ranked in top 2% of scientists in the worldwide Stanford University. Dr. Vasudevan has authored more than 125 scientific papers, has 24 technical patents to his credit, transferred many technologies to industries like defluorinator, dearsenator, and many more. And he has over 3 decades of research teaching experience in India's premier R&D institutions, that is CSR SICRI. Professor Vasudevan is fellow of Royal Society of Chemistry, Australian Institute of High Energetic Materials, Academy of Sciences, Chennai, and many other academies. He is visiting faculty professor in Indian international universities. Professor Vasudevan is an editorial board and associate editor of many prestigious, including scientific reports provided by Nature publications, and received numerous professional awards such as MRSI medal. Now he is heading the electrochemical process engineering division. With this brief introduction, now I invite Dr. S. Vasudevan for his lecture. Sir, please.
Yes. Very good afternoon to all. Thank you, Dr. Angappan, for the nice introduction. So now I am directly going for my lecture. Just one minute, I can share my slides.
Visible.
Yeah, one second. I will just go for the full screen.
Yeah.
It's okay?
Yes, okay, sir.
Yes. Thank you all the participants today afternoon. Today you can see the topic is smart technologies for green life. So we are regularly talking smart city, smart village, smart places like that. The smart is not only for village and city. We also want the smart technologies for our green life. So smart technologies means what I thought in mind was everybody has to get clean water and green energy. That is for all, even all over the world or in all over the Indians, we need the clean water and green energy. So then you can get the green life. So today I am going to talk what we are working related to smart technologies. Smart technology means it should be a clean and a green, like that. So what smart technology means? The system is the smart technology is based on the electrochemistry. Based on the electrochemistry, I am going to talk two topics today regarding to the smart technologies. One is called to purify the water by electrochemical means, and you have the very green energy or clean energy by the electrochemistry means. So with respect to energy, I am going to talk about the hydrogen energy. So maybe all of you hearing that nowadays the government and every world is thinking of the green energy. In particular, all the cities want to make the green energy. So in that, how hydrogen is taking place in the green energy scenario. So first I can concentrate on clean water by electrochemical means, then green energy, that is hydrogen, in electrochemistry means. So water means you can see in earlier days, ancient text, you can see the 9 types of water are enumerated. So before going to water, so everybody know that water is H2O, there is a compound like that. But you can see in the ancient text, they will created in the 9 forms of water, that is called Nadidia, that is water of rivers emerging from the mountains. That is one type of water they are classified, that is Nadidia. And Nishyanda, this is obtained by making a pit in the sand with the hands. So that is called Nishyanda. And Sarasa, so the water having lotus collected from the streams. Another one is Bamua, that is water with the hue of blue lilies collected from ponds. Next is Kaunda, the water found in the midst of long rocky reservoirs. And next one is Tadaka, the water which is collected in large lakes. That is called, normally we are telling the dams. And Nach Yarjaha, that is water from waterfalls. And Varaksa, the water obtained from trees. For example, it is a coconut water. And last one is Adbakia, the water that guesses out with the force from the spring. So this type of classification was done in the ancient texts. So if you see the Earth's water, we have the plenty of water. You can see the 97% of the world is covered by the water by the ocean. In that 97%, we have only the 3% of fresh water. So in that 3% of fresh water, we have 70% of ice caps and glaciers, and remaining 29% is the groundwater. So in that 29%, we have the 1% water is easily accessible fresh water, that is by the lakes and soil moisture and water vapor and river and water in living things. So even in the 1% of water, lakes is 52% and soil moisture is 38%, and remaining only 1% of water is living things. So we have to take care of this 1% of water, that is lakes and soil moisture and river, everything we have to take care. Then only we have to survive. So you can see the map in 1962 and in 2014. You can see in the gray color and blue color. So in 1962, you can see all the places is almost blue in color. That means there is no water scarcity or water stress or water vulnerability. So in 2014, you can see so many places there is a water scarcity and water stress is going on. So in 2021, it is still higher. This scarcity and stress is not only higher in India and also in all over the world, water scarcity and stresses are started. So in water stress means what I can mean is that is called water per capita. That is called international norms. If you are telling your place is water stress means how to calculate. That is, if the per capita water availability is less than 1700 meter cube per year means water was stressed. So if it is less than 1000 meter cube per capita per year is water scarce. So in India, the per capita surface water availability in year 1991 and 2001 were 2309 and 1902 meter cube per capita per year. So then these are projected to reduce to 1401 and 1199 meter cube by the year 2025 and 2050 respectively. That means there is a need for proper planning, development and management for the clean water. So we are in India, we are moving towards the water stress country comparing with all over the world. For that only, we want to make the sustainable technology or the clean technology for the people who are living in India. You can see the per capita per water availability in Africa. It is declining all over the world, declining Asia, Middle East and North Africa. Everywhere there is a water per capita is going on decreasing. So for that we need a proper planning. So if you take the India, how the water was affected or contaminated, because in present, pesticides, dyes, and pharmaceuticals, and fluoride, arsenic, iron, nitrate, etc. are the main groundwater quality problems in India. Apart from that, we have the some other minerals also contaminated. So, and posing the largest threat to public health. So, we have to remove both pesticides, dyes, pharmaceuticals, fluoride, arsenic, iron and everything in a clean method. So, apart from that, salinity and chloride are also the major problem in Indian groundwater quality. Let us see one by one. You can see the arsenic in the top left. So the arsenic was contaminated by almost West Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab. And fluoride, you can see more than 10 states of India were affected. In nitrate, almost 8 to 9 states are affected. And salinity also 5 to 6 states. And iron also, it is almost 10 to 11 states. What I said in the earlier slide, so the main problem or main contaminants of inorganic compounds are arsenic, fluoride, nitrate, salinity and iron. So these are the main inorganic culprit in the Indian scenario. That is almost 50.
Vasan muted. Sir, you are muted. Vasan sir, please. Vasan sir, you are muted, sir. Please.
Now okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now you are seeing my slides now? Sir, slides are okay? Slides?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, yes.
Full screen also. Okay. Proceed, sir.
Okay. 1 second. Full screen?
Full screen, sir. Full screen.
Okay. So now you can see the 54% of India faces high to extremely high water stress. Apart from the land, nowadays you can see the water pollution were there in the under the sea. You can see the one small boy is seeing how the water was polluted in the under the sea. So this is the situation in Indian continent. So main problem for groundwater pollution is many industries like pesticides and fertilizers and hazardous waste injection well. So many places you can get the pollution from the groundwater. So now what we need to do, suppose if you want to treat the water, it is affordable and it is a clean and it is accessible. So please mute your mics. Yeah, you can see the your technology should be the affordable and clean and accessible. If your technology is smart, so you have to pass these three main things. So now we go for water treatment process. So in water treatment technologies, you can classify it as biological process, physical process, physico-chemical process, chemical process, and thermal processes. So each and every process, there is a merit and demerit. I can say this advantages and disadvantages. So one cannot say that this technology is not good for this treatment, but in each and every process or technology was suitable for the some type of water. So today I am going to talk more about the electrochemical water treatment technologies. So why the electrochemical technology? You can see this. Hello. This is called environmentally compatibility. That is the main reagent used is the electrons. So there is no residue or formed. So that is the main reason this is environmental compatibility. And the second one is flexible. So many processes occur simultaneously in any electrochemical cell. And second flexibility is point of use production of disinfectants is facilitated by electrochemical technology, and third one is volume of fluid from microliters to thousands of cubic meters can be treated by electrochemical method, and the process work at room temperature and atmospheric pressure. So these are the main flexibility in the electrochemical process. And selectivity, because the selectivity is very important for the each and every pollutant. That is, the applied potential can be controlled to selectivity attack the specific compound. If you want to remove the nitrate means some selective potential. If you want to remove the chromium means you can fix the potential. Like that, you can selectively remove the particular ions by the electrochemical technology only. And the last and final is very easy operation, and it is very easy to automate, and it is the cost effectiveness. So that's why this electrochemical technology is smart one for every people. So what is happening inside the electrochemical cell? So dear students, you can see, you can assume this is a tank, or this is a beaker, or this is a cell. You can, whatever the thing you can assume. So in the electrochemical system or electrochemical cell, you have one anode, one cathode. This is for example, I can say the number one anode and one cathode, but it should be a multiple anode and cathode in the very big cells. So in the anode, you can see there is a 5 things are taking place in the electrochemical cell. One is called the electro-oxidation process that will takes place in the anode, and another system is number 3, that is called electrodissolution. That is nothing but electrocoagulation. So in electrochemical process, there are 4 processes are there. Number 1 and number 3 will take place in anode, and number 2 the electro reduction, and number 4 electro deposition. These type of processes will take place in the cathode side. So the anode side do process, in the cathode side do process. If you want to remove the contaminants by electrooxidation or electrodissolution, you have to see the anode side. If you want to reduce or deposit the contaminant, you can see the cathode side. And also the migration of anions and cations will be the takes place. This is the ultimate or the electrochemical cell you have to see in your lab. First, I can see number 3, that is called electrocoagulation or electrochemical dissolution. Nothing but the electrocoagulation. Here you can see, as I said, there is one anode, one cathode, and here the DC power source was applied. Then what will happen? No, the anode will dissolve. Some amount of metal will be dissolved as Me plus, and in the cathode you can, the water will be reduced and you can get OH minus ions. So these two reactions will be takes place in the electrocoagulation process. You can see the equations here. So the electrocoagulation, as I told, is the in situ generation of coagulants. That means the adsorbing materials, the coagulant. Normally in chemical method, the coagulants will be synthesized and kept in the tins. So that will be used for the removal of contaminants. Here in our electrocoagulation process, you can generate in situ method. That means how much you want the coagulant, you can fix by the current or potential. So if you want 1 gram of so if you want, please switch off your mics. If you want 1 gram of coagulant means you can fix the current and potential, you can remove the contaminant. This is the main advantages for the electrocoagulation process. And here what I said is the electrodissolution metal will be converted to metal ions. Then it will be converted to hydroxide ions. You can see the what are all the materials. I can say you can use it as aluminium, and you can use iron, and you can use magnesium, and you can use zinc. So these are all the 4 metals you can use as the anode. So you can see that, you can imagine in the electrochemical cell. What I said is, here is the number 2, that is electrodissolution, nothing but electrocoagulation. Here the aluminium, iron, magnesium, zinc, whatever the metal, if you want, you can choose depending upon the contamination. So earlier aluminium and iron was used, but in my place in SICRI we used magnesium and zinc. We are the first person using the magnesium and zinc as the anode material, but in earlier in 1990 they used only and aluminium. Why I choose magnesium and zinc means, if you take the aluminium, in case excess aluminium was present in the drinking water, it is more dangerous than the contamination, because only the 20 ppb of aluminium will affect your brain. So that's why we chosen magnesium and zinc. If you see the magnesium, whatever the more than contamination you can take, nothing will happen for your body. And zinc also, if you take more, nothing will happen in your body. In the present situation, in the corona period, the doctors are saying that a zinc tablet are prescribing. So we used zinc as the anode material well before that in this pandemic period. So our always we use magnesium and zinc as the anode. You can see that aluminium was going to aluminium hydroxide, and magnesium hydroxide, zinc is zinc hydroxide, and iron is iron hydroxide. So like that, each and every metal will form their hydroxide. These hydroxides will chemisorb the contaminant, and you can easily remove the contaminants. So this is taking place in the anode. In the cathode, what I said is the water will be dissociated, and you can get the OH minus ion. Apart from that, hydrogen will be evolved. So these are the reaction mechanism for the electrolyte. In the previous slide, I told that aluminum will be formed aluminum hydroxide, but it won't form the aluminum hydroxide directly. There is a plenty of intermediates will be formed with the charge, that is plus charge or minus charge. So plenty of intermediates are formed during the electrochemical process. So this will be removed by the adsorption process or surface complexation or by the co-precipitation method. So whichever the hydroxide, it will be removed either three of these process. So you can assume that this is the aluminum hydroxide structure. In the center, it is called negatively charged particle or the nucleus. So in the nucleus, it is a negatively charged, and you can see in the round there is a positive charges. So the nucleus may be negatively charged or positively charged, or mixed. Both negatively and positively charged intermediates will be in the cell. So if it is your contamination is positive charge, it automatically absorbs. The positively charged nucleus is there, the negative contamination will be formed. So whatever the contaminant, whether your contaminant is positively charged and negatively charged, both will be removed by the electrocoagulation process. So this is called the 5-step process. Number 1 is compression of the diffuse layer by the an increase of the ionic strength. That is, the hydroxide will be going on formed. After that, there is a compression of the diffuse layer. The second step is neutralization of the superficial charges by the adsorption of ions. I told in the nucleus it is negative means the positive. So that neutralization will be takes place in the second. And third one is the precipitation charges neutralization. All the things will be chemisorbed or physisorbed and converted to the precipitation charges. And fourth one is interparticle bridging, and fifth one is the enhancement in the precipitate. So we are not able to see these 5 steps, but the removal takes place by the 5 steps method. So by the way, the dissolved organic matters also removed by the electrocoagulation process. I said electrocoagulation, electroflotation. What is called electroflotation? So you can see that in the anode side, there is a oxygen formation. In the cathode side, hydrogen will be evolved. Apart from that, the metal hydroxide, you can get oxygen in the anode and hydrogen in the cathode. So these two gases are very, very essential for the electrocoagulation process. One is for turbulence, one is for the adherence. So these two gases are favoring the turbulence and the adhesion process. That is, the promotes the soft mixing conditions and improve the flocculation process. That is, this is because of the turbulence. This is because of the gas evolved in the electrocoagulation process. Then the second use is adhesion. That is,
Sir, your
the
voice is not coming.
The gaseous microbubbles linked to pollutant particles. Consequently, the density of the new species decreases, and this promotes the flotation of the particle. So these oxygen and hydrogen will be used for turbulence and adhesion process. So how you can use this electrocoagulation process for the removal of fluoride? What I said is fluoride in groundwater was higher in Indian states, that is more than 66.
Sir, Vasan sir is muted. Please unmute. Okay.
The fluoride, you can see the levels. What is the
Vasavan sir, again muted, sir. Sir, Vasavan sir, please. Now okay, sir.
I don't know why it is regularly missing. So like this disease will be takes place. And our SICRIS technology, the specialty is aluminum alloy development. As I told you earlier, there is a problem in when if you are using the aluminum will be dissolved in the water. There should be a problem in your health. So what we think was we are use the aluminum alloys. So these alloys will be will be dissolved uniformly, and we are not found any aluminum contamination in the drinking water. So this is the speciality of our technology. This is the anode side. If you want to see the cathode side, what we did was we carried out the experiment for a different type of cathode material, that is called aluminum, stainless steel, and galvanized iron. So we did the different experiments, and we finally concluded that the galvanized iron became the most suitable cathode for the electrocoagulation process. And also we done the different experiments for the electrode configuration, that is called either it should be a monopolar configuration or the bipolar configuration. Monopolar configuration means each and every anode and cathode the DC current will be supplied. In bipolar configuration, the terminal electrode will be supplied by the DC current. So this type of electrode configuration also we tried in our experiments. And also we tried the cell design in the form of a tank type or the float type. In the float type, we seen the single channel or multiple channel. So we designed the plenty of cell design and come to the conclusion that there is a direct flow design. You can see we are started in the beaker level. Even though whatever the experiment you start, you can start with your basic level. We started the things in the beaker, and now we are developed a very big electrochemical cell for the fluoride removal. You can see this is the example of electrochemical cell and the chemical method. This technology, the comparison is both the technology will be removed 200 liters of water per hour. That means you can be remove the every hour you can remove the 200 liters. So you can see the electrochemical method, the space requirement is very small. Suppose in the case of chemical method, the space and utility and everything was more. So this is the advantage of electrochemical method and chemical method now the people are using. So this is the simple design of electrochemical defluoridator of 100 liter per hour capacity, and this can be operated by the solar photovoltaic cells. You can see the data. The fluoride we took as a 5 ppm at the maximum level. This we are removed less than 1.5 ppm, but it was given as 1.5 ppm. but our technology will remove even below, that is 0.5 ppm of fluoride. And also you can see we tested chloride, calcium, magnesium and other ions. You can see the lost aluminium. So in the feed water also not there, in defluoridated water also not detected. That means our aluminium alloy is well suitable for the electrochemical process. So this is the our technology. You can see the photographs we are demonstrating for the industries. So after the demonstration, the technology will be transferred to industries whomever we want. This is the sample industries we transferred. Say you can see the industries from Bangalore, Nagpur, Raipur, and the Odisha. So these are the people interested for our technology, and we transferred the technology. And the next one is, I said, is fluoride. Next one is arsenic in groundwater. In all over the world, arsenic was completely affected. For example, in India, the population of the 35 district, that is 7 to 5 states, identified with the groundwater arsenic contamination. About 70 to 100 million people are risk due to arsenic. So if you take the arsenic, this is the situation for the human beings. This will not happen immediately. If the small boy is taking the arsenic contaminated water, you can slowly the poisoning will be takes place when you are the more than 40 years and 45 years only. You know that you are contaminated with the arsenic. So this is the very slow poisoning. Arsenic always a very slow poisoning. It won't come immediately. You can see the few examples how the arsenic will be affected. So for that also we tried like fluoride. We make the technology for the arsenic in the same principle. From the last slides I told direct current, that means DC. Whatever the current we are getting directly from EB is the AC current, but in all the electrochemical cell we use the DC current. We are converting the AC to DC, then only the electrochemical system will work. But in electrocoagulation cell, even it is not DC is required, you can work the system electrocoagulation by the AC current. So that we are also tested, the efficiency was almost same. So that means you need not convert the AC to DC for this purpose. And secondly, some people will say that this is energy intensive, like that. For that, we did a small calculation. That means we collected the hydrogen gas. Apart from this, the usage of hydrogen, the excess hydrogen will be collected, and we assumed that will be converted to the energy purposes. So if you collect the hydrogen, if you use it as the energy, so 50% of the energy you are gaining for the total system. This is the simple calculation we did our system. So now I am taking the water contamination by the agricultural activities. So India is mainly in the agricultural activities. So we thought that we can test the agricultural contamination is possible by removing by this method. So we tried boron. So boron also the main contaminant in agricultural lands. So we tested and we got more than a 95% removal efficiency for the boron by the electrocoagulation system, and also the phosphate and nitrate. These are all coming from the fertilizers. So this also it is possible to remove phosphate and the nitrate. So these are all these phosphate and nitrate are inorganic contaminants. So now you can see the agriculture, they are using pesticides and herbicides. So these are all organic contaminants. So we seen in the literature, and what are all the herbicides used in Indian places is called 2,4-D, 2,4,5-T. So we simulated these herbicides in our lab. See, we tested our technology. We are able to remove almost more than 95%. So this conclude that whatever the contamination in agricultural lands will be or can be removed by the electrocoagulation process. So this is the 2,4-DP, MCPP. These are all the few herbicides used in the Indian agricultural lands. This is the some cell using in the demonstration of electrocoagulation process in the agricultural areas in the US. So this technology is the multi-purpose technology used in domestic or industrial purposes. So in the second, in the anode, I said that is one is electro-oxidation process, another one is electro-dissolution process, that is 1 and 3. Oh, now this is called number 1 in the electrochemical cell, that is called electro-oxidation technologies. So the electro-oxidation technology, you can see it is only one process, but it can be divided into 3. That is called direct electro-oxidation or electrolysis, or the electro-oxidation by the indirect method or advanced oxidation process. So the electro-oxidation will be categorized by the 3 types. One is direct, another one is indirect, another one is advanced oxidation process. These are all the 3 types of electro-oxidation technologies, that is a clean technologies are available by the electrochemical route. So like the electrocoagulation, there is a plenty of options for the anode material like platinum, stainless steel, boron doped diamond electrodes, like that. Plenty of electrodes are available. So you can choose which anode will be suitable for your contamination and for your pH, whatever the conditions, you can choose the anode material. So in general, they will say that low efficiency anode or the high efficiency anode. What is low efficiency electrode or low efficiency anode means? Suppose if you take the phenol as the example, suppose your water having the phenol, this is an organic compound. Suppose if you are using one type of anode, for example platinum or IrO2, so in the final, if you see the many intermediates and very low conversion and slow oxidation rate and low current efficiency, so these are all as a disadvantages for the process. So we can say that this is called a low efficiency electrode. If it is a phenol, so it is I can say that the platinum and IrO2 was not suitable. So you can try for the another anodes. For example, you can see the phenol, if you oxidize, you can see the quinones and polymers and carboxylic acid are in the water. That means still your organic contaminants are in water. So that is, I can say that high efficiency electrode. The same phenol you can oxidize, you can get only small amount of carbon dioxide. That is the final ultimate product. No intermediate and high efficiency and large current efficiency. That is, you can see the boron doped diamond electrode, that is called BDD, or lead dioxide coated. This is I am telling the example, but there are plenty of high efficient electrodes are available. So one can choose which electrode is suitable for your condition, for your contamination, depending upon your solution. So like that, cathode material, plenty of cathode materials like titanium, mild steel, stainless steel, that also you can choose depending upon your situation or environment. Then like electrocoagulation, you can design the cell. So in electrocoagulation, the designing is different. Here the designing is different. Here you can make the divided cell and undivided cell. Suppose whatever the contaminant is oxidizing means, it should not be reversible. Sometime it will reach the cathode and again it will be reduced into starting material. For that you want a divided cell. If you want, if the end product is it is not reversible, you can use the undivided cell. So this here also you can choose divided or undivided cell. And next one is nitrate in groundwater. So we are all know that the nitrate contamination was more in India because of the fertilizer. So what happened in the nitrate means you can see the blue baby syndrome. What is the blue baby syndrome is you can see the most of the villages in primary health centers, the born children will be blue in color in the fingers of leg and hand and in the lips. You can see that then doctor say that there is the oxygen deficiency. So what doctor will say? He will give the oxygen to the children. So then the blue color will be disappear, because the nitrate, the contaminated water you are taking means that will be converted to nitrite. So the nitrate will take all the oxygen from your body, and this nitrate intermediate will be they want to convert it to nitrate. So the nitrate, the system will be happening in the body. That means all the oxygen in the body will be taken by the nitrate ion. So if you want to remove this type of blue baby syndrome, the water should be free from the nitrate. So for that also we did the preliminary experiment, like different type of anodes and cathode under the Indo-French collaborative project. And we did the very big size and small size, and finally we got one small size cell by electrochemical cell. It will remove the nitrate. And another one, the second type, these are all the no direct electrolysis taking place in the anode. Here it is the indirect oxidation. Indirect oxidation means you are generating the oxidants. What I can say is a silver 2, cobalt and cerium like that. So these are all oxidants you can generate in the cell. This oxidant will oxidize your contamination. So this is called indirect oxidation process. And another one is irreversible, that is called killers. What I can say is chlorine, ozone and hydrogen peroxide. These are all the irreversible oxidants. So either you can use reversible oxidant or irreversible oxidants for oxidize your contaminant. So these are all the few examples for silver and cobalt. What are all the organic contaminants will be removed. And another one is sulfate peroxy disulfate. So suppose if you have the sulfate as the contaminant in your water, you can make the sulfate to peroxido disulfate. Okay, so this peroxy disulfate is the one of the oxidant, that is called S2O8 is the peroxo disulfate. So this is also one of the powerful oxidant. Here you are using the sulfate contaminant and you are indirectly using the same sulfate as the oxidant, like that phosphate peroxo disulfate. So another one is the hypochlorite. You can very well know that chlorine and hypochlorite are disinfectant in the present pandemic situation. This also you can generate by the electrochemical process. So another one is the indirect oxidant is ozone. This is also you can generate by the electrochemical method. Why the ozone and why the hypochlorite is the hypochlorite is less oxidation power, the ozone is more oxidation power. So if you are not able to oxidize by the hypochlorite, you can use the ozone. So both will be generated by the electrochemical method. And another is the hydrogen peroxide. So this is the medium oxidation power. So hypochlorite, hydrogen peroxide and ozone. So these are all the main oxidants can be generated by the electrochemical methods. Okay. And another one is I can say that advanced oxidation process, that is called third time. Suppose you are not able to oxidize the contaminant by the indirect electrochemical process or the direct electrochemical process, you can use the AOP, that is called advanced oxidation process. Here the process is based on the oxidizing power of the hydroxyl radical. You can see in the table there is a hypochlorite, ozone, hydrogen peroxide. The more powerful is the OH dot. This OH dot is having the oxidizing power of 2.80 versus NHE. So this will oxidize whatever the organic contaminant that is called persistent organic compound. You are not able to oxidize by the earlier method. You can oxidize by the advanced oxidation process. This is called, we can say, the Fenton reaction. So the Fenton means the people will think the chemical method. You can add iron and hydrogen peroxide. This is called a Fenton. This is called, normally people will say. Why it is, whether it is possible by electrochemical method, that is called electrofenton process, means yes, it is easy. You can generate the hydrogen peroxide ion in the electrochemical cell, so it will form the in situ formation of the Fenton reagent. That is called, normally I can say, advanced oxidation process is nothing but we are using the Fenton reagent for the electro oxidation process. So it is easily you can generate the Fenton reagent by the electrochemical process, that is called electrofenton process or the advanced oxidation process. So this can be coupled by different type of systems like with that is sono-electrofenton, photo-electrofenton, like that. Sono photo means you can use the photons, and sono means you can use the sono energy for the electrofenton process. This is called peroxycoagulation, means this is the couple of the first thing, coagulation and advanced oxidation process. So you can combine advanced oxidation process and coagulation process, that is called peroxycoagulation or electrofenton process. This is the one type. Once you can understand electrofenton and electrocoagulation and electrooxidation, you can immediately think of how to combine the different process. So that's why you have to learn everything different processes. So ultimately the process is environmentally friendly and economical and easy. Setting up of this electrooxidation or advanced oxidation process is very, very environmentally friendly. Iron in groundwater was many, but there is no electrochemical system for iron removal. But indirectly I can say that once if your water was contaminated iron, you can aerate the water, so the iron hydroxide will be precipitated out, then you can filter it. That means you can generate the oxygen from the electrochemical method, can pass that oxygen and oxidize the water. So here is the indirect electrochemical process, not in the direct oxidation process. And salinity and TDS in the groundwater is the very serious things. Now we can see how to remove by electrochemical method. The chlorine in groundwater will be, you can see the only the seashore areas like Mumbai, Chennai. So here only you can get the more chloride in the groundwater, not in the central part of the India. So that means the seawater or seawater contaminated groundwater can be converted to the fresh water. This is our ultimate goal. This will be done by the desalination of water. Here electrodialysis, that is, you can use the anionic membrane and cationic membrane alternatively, and you can remove the both anions and cations process. This is the one type of electrochemical process. You can remove the anions and cations, whatever the thing in the water. Okay. And another thing are the newly developing technologies was capacitive deionization, that is electrosorption. You can pass the current, the deionization occur by applying the voltage over two porous carbon electrodes. So that means your positive and negative charges will be attracted by the negative and positive side of the electrode. Thereby you can remove the chloride and sodium, whatever the thing, by the capacitive deionization process. After that you can reverse it, all the ions will be come out, and you can filter it by the opposite direction. So this is very good advantages, like you can work it in solar energy, and this is the novel three-dimensional electrode, you can use it. This is a many advantages than the whatever the existing reverse osmosis systems having the large drawbacks. So this is the simple system you can use for the this type of capacitive deionization system. This is the simple electrochemical cell for the capacitive deionization process. Nowadays, you can see the graphene. You may be heard about the graphene was now it is picking up. What I can say that this is the magic membrane for the desalination. So nowadays people are using the conventional membranes. If the graphene membranes are developed, this will be very much useful for the RO systems to filtering the anions and cations. You can see this is the nanoporous graphene. You can see the fresh water and saline water. Very easily using the nanoporous graphene, you can separate the salt water and you can get the fresh water. Still, the research is going on. So by the way, the graphene will be the salt rejection in percentage is more in the case of graphene. So people are now using graphene membrane for the reverse osmosis technologies. So these are all the CSIR secret technologies relating to different ions based on the smart technologies. I can say electrochemical technology. That means there is no secondary pollution after the treatment. So another thing is photoelectrochemical method. Still the works are going on. This is the photons. We are using the sunlight and converting the contaminated water to the clean water. So in summary, the electrochemical methods are generally cost efficient and environmentally begin purification process, and enhancement of the methods are often related to the material development only. So the optimization of the treatment is highly important, and especially pH significantly and the most of the process. So once the system was developed, you can just you can see the anode and cathode, and that's all. The very small experiment can do for the upgradation of cells. So up to this, I can talk about the smart technologies for the water treatment, that is electrocoagulation and electro-oxidation of 3 type, and also the electrodialysis or the removal of TDS. Now the first part, that is a clean water, will be over. Now I can come for the green energy. Green energy is, today I am going to talk about the hydrogen. Hydrogen is the green energy for the present situation. That means we are going carbon-based energy to the renewable energy, C2R. Earlier we used carbon-based energy. We are getting CO2 contamination in the atmosphere. That is C. So now we are proceeding to R. That is called renewable energy, free from CO2. So the hydrogen is the very unique in the periodic table, in the first in the periodic table. So the Henry was developed in 1766, and the first industrial water electrolyzer was developed in 1888. That is, then only if it is water electrolyzer means only you can get the hydrogen. That was developed in 1888. So these are all the features of the green hydrogen. Suppose in your mind, energy means your mind will be in the your eyes in the up. That is, you are seeing the sun. That is the ultimate energy. The clean energy is the sun energy. That we are getting 5.6 into 10 power 24 joules per year. So this much of clean energy we are getting. For example, the energy emitted in 1 hour by the sun is adequate to cover the energy needs of the entire world population for 1 year. You can see the how much sun is giving the energy to the earth. So we have to utilize the sun energy for our future as the clean energy. Apart from this sun, now the plenty of energies, that is green energies, or we are doing. So as I told, our ultimate aim is that is global greenhouse gases emission by sector. This is the graph. That is, we are going towards the zero greenhouse gas emission. So you can see the different industries and different transports are giving CO2. So our aim is the zero CO2 emission for the green energy, for the green life. So this is our ultimate goal. If you take the energy storage system, we have plenty of energy storage systems called batteries and pumped hydro systems and flywheels and supermagnetic and high energy storage. You can generate energy by the different methods. So here I am going to talk about the only the energy based on the hydrogen. Okay. So why I am talking the hydrogen means the World Organization told that reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 17% by 2020 and 83% by the 2050 from the 2005 baseline. So this is the world standard for the greenhouse gases, and reduce the net oil imports by the half by the 2020 from 2008. So there is a 5 rules they are given for the climate change. So in that 5, so the hydrogen at scale strongly impact number 1, number 2 and number 4. So in the 3 places, hydrogen will play a vital role for the green energy for the world. So you can see in the 1874, that is Jules Verne told, I believe that water will one day be employed as fuel, so that hydrogen and oxygen, which constitute it, used singly or together, will furnish an inexhaustible source of heat and light, of an intensity of which coal is not capable. This word are written in 1874 itself. They decided that in future hydrogen will be the main energy for the world. I can assume the world is assuming that 2050 water will replace fossil fuels as the primary resource for the hydrogen. So in 1874 itself, it was predicted that hydrogen is the ultimate energy for the world. So you can see the energy requirement from 2016 to 40, global energy, you can see the map. India take lead because we are now going, India is going towards the many industrialization. So you can see the world, India take lead for the energy consumption, that is energy demand is more. That means we have to plan such a way that our demand will be satisfied by the green energy. And this is, you can see the petroleum age. For you can take as the transport side. In 1956, Huber predicted the oil production, how the rate. You can see 1900 to 2100. So this graph was drawn in 1956. They said that the oil will be completely zero in 2100, not in 2050, not in 2060. So in 2040 also we need oil. That is, the peak oil production is 2000, and you can see in 2025 the price of oil is $100 per gallon. Automatically the price will be rising, and in 2100 we assume that there is no oil production in the oil wells. So we are going towards the zero oil in 2100. So to achieve these goals, India is made as the intended nationally determined contribution, that is called INDA. For India, what is plan is, that is 40% of power from non-fossil fuel by 2030. So whatever the power generation is in 2030, 40% by the non-fossil, and to reduce the emission intensity of its GDP by 33 to 35% by 2030 from 2000 level, and additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through additional forest and tree cover by 2030. So whatever the thing you are developing, the hydrogen or batteries, whatever the thing, also we have a plan to grow trees. So I'm requesting all of you to grow trees. Son, you can remove the CO2 by 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 from the atmosphere by tree foresting. And this graph also showing, you can see the green and the black. That means the solid fuel is going on declining, and liquid fuel also using the liquid fuel declining, and gaseous fuel is going up. So this is the ultimate. In 2150, the hydrogen is the ultimate energy for the world. So this graph predicts that no liquid fuel, no solid fuel, only gaseous fuel will be there in the world. So you can see the age, that is hydrogen is the answer for meeting stringent environmental norms. First we are used wood, then it was gone to coal, then it was go to oil now, then it was natural gas, the ultimate is hydrogen. So this graph, you can understand that where we are going for the energy, green energy. So now why I am talking more about hydrogen. What is a big deal in that hydrogen in the properties or the thing you can assume. I am going on talking, sir, what is there in the hydrogen means. You can see the compare the energy density, that is megajoules per kilogram. You can take lithium battery, that is 0.54 is the energy density, and gasoline is 46.9, and hydrogen is the 140 megajoules per kilogram. That means 220 times more energy than batteries and 2.6 times more energy than the gasoline. So this is the more advantages. This is the big deal with the hydrogen, and upper heating value is more for the hydrogen than methane, diesel and gasoline. That's why the entire world and the entire people are talking more about the hydrogen nowadays. And apart from that, hydrogen is a multifunctional. It is used as the transportation and also it is used as the industries, transport, heating, power generation. So it connects energy, mobility and industry. So this is the multifunctional. That's why it is more advantage in energy wise and functional wise. It is advantageous. So before going to hydrogen, what are all the things you have to think? So if I want to drink water, then I have to see whether I have to go by walk or I have to go by run. So many factors are there to drink 1 cup of water. So before going to the hydrogen, what are all the things you have to do? One is production, or then one is storage, how to transport, how to deliver, and then what are all the application, what are all the efficiency, and we have to give the awareness to the about the hydrogen, and you can also take care of the safety codes and standards. So it is not very easy to implement the hydrogen energy immediately. So you have to think of each and every angle from the production to and the end to the safety. In earlier days, people are very much afraid to use our LPG gases. So now everywhere LPG gases because of the safety codes and standards. Like that, the hydrogen, for hydrogen also, you have, it is not production, it is not the storage, it is not the delivery, but you have to give the safety codes and standards for the hydrogen energy. Suppose in the case of hydrogen production, I am talking about more on hydrogen production. Means we are concentrating on hydrogen production origin. So hydrogen production means you can think, you can simply split the water, you can get hydrogen and oxygen, but it is not like that. Even in the production, there is called different colors, that is called green hydrogen, gray hydrogen, blue hydrogen, yellow hydrogen, brown hydrogen, black hydrogen, pink hydrogen. So these color means it will give the secondary poly. That means if you go for gray hydrogen, so you can generate from the fossil fuels. So fossil fuel means the CO2 will be emitted. So it is not good, the production of hydrogen by the fossil fuel. That is called gray hydrogen. So yellow hydrogen means the electrolysis using electricity from the mixed origin, that is renewable fossil fuels, nuclear, etc. So depending upon the preparation method we can call as gray, blue, yellow, like that. So ultimate is green hydrogen, that is electrolysis of water using electricity from renewable energy only, either wind, solar, or the hydropower. That means the carbon impact is zero for the green hydrogen. That means green method of production of hydrogen. And in that green hydrogen, you are electrolyzing, you are using the renewable energy. In that also, we have the three systems, that is called alkaline electrolysis, PEM electrolysis, and high temperature electrolysis. So each and every terms are different. Suppose if you take alkaline, the electrolyte is KOH. In the case of PEM, it is the membrane itself, the electrolyte. The high temperature one, it need more temperature. So we can see one by one what are the three types of electrolysis. That is, you can generate the green hydrogen. So for this hydrogen, you want that is 1.48 volt of energy required to produce the hydrogen gas. This is theoretical graph showing the energy requirement. So the production of hydrogen, I said you can produce the green hydrogen by the renewable only, not by the non-renewables. So the renewable you can divide it into two parts. One is without electricity, that is from renewable. Another one is with electricity from renewable. Whatever the case, the thing is renewables. You can produce hydrogen by the renewable sources. If there is no electricity, but the renewable means you can choose the biological photoelectrolytic hydrogen or electrochemical photolytic hydrogen or the photoelectrochemical water splitting or biological water splitting or fermentation and solar thermal water splitting. So these are all the things, but these are all renewable, but you need not use the electricity. So by this way also you can produce hydrogen. You don't bother about you want electricity, but this is the renewable. This is the one approach. Another one is, this is called renewable, but with electricity. You can use the electricity from the renewable source, that is hydropower, wind power, and bioenergy, geothermal, solar thermal. So there are two types of methods. You can produce hydrogen, that is with electricity and without electricity by the renewable process. So you can opt either electricity or without electricity for the green hydrogen production. And you can see the first type is alkaline electrolysis. What I said is you can use the potassium hydroxide as the electrolyte. Here you can use 25% of KOH, that is highly concentrated KOH or NaOH will be used as the electrolyte, and you can electrolyze. You can get the high pure hydrogen. The temperature is 80 degree centigrade. Okay, for that you need 4 to 5 units is required to produce the 1 meter cube of hydrogen. This is called one type of electrolyzer called alkaline electrolyzer. You can see this is the 100 years old technology, but still the research is going on to improve the efficiency of the electrolysis system. For that, what is our contribution is, we developed the new electrode, that is called anode, for this type of alkaline electrolyzer, that is high surface area nickel. Till our development, this type of electrodes are imported from the foreign countries. Now under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, this is indigenously available. Now the people are using our technology in the alkaline electrolyzer. And this is the high temperature electrolyzers. It required more temperature, almost 800 degrees centigrade to 900 degrees centigrade. So most in case of wherever the temperature is excess, you can use the high temperature electrolysis. Most of the places this type of electrolysis is not suitable for the common places. So still the researches are going on for the ceramic membrane and anode and cathode material. The another one is called proton exchange membrane. This is our new thing or our technology. This is called proton exchange membrane. We developed from the starting to bottom in our laboratory. That is, here we need the one membrane, that is in alkaline electrolyzer we want KOH, NaOH or a liquid electrolyte. But in the case of solid polymer electrolyte, that is called proton exchange membrane, you need only the purified water. The membrane itself acts as the electrolyte. That is, you can generate the hydrogen from water only. No need of any electrolyte, acid or alkaline. This is the main advantages for the proton exchange membrane. So here the electrolyte, as I said, is proton exchange membrane, but here the disadvantage is we are using the noble metal oxides. So the noble metals are not available in India. So now our laboratory is going for the non-noble metals. So whatever the material available in India, we have to try for the indigenous technology. Until now, we are using the non-noble metals. The materials all are imported from the foreign countries. So like that, you can select the different electrocatalysts like rutile type, perovskite type, spinel type. Plenty of anodes are available. You can try. And like in the cathode also, you can go for the different cathodes like noble metal, non-noble metal, like that. Noble means it is costly, non-noble metal it is less cost. So we are now going towards the non-noble metals. So this is the first prototype model developed by the SICRI. This is called 0.2 meter cube, very low capacity. So this was started some 15 years ago. We are started with the, as I told in the earlier cases, we started in the small unit and tested for their characteristic with the available in the market. It is very much close to whatever the thing available in the market. Then we are gone for the double, that is called 0.04 meter, that is the double the capacity of first one, and we are tested. And again we went for the double triple the capacity of the first one, that is called 0.8 meter cube. And finally we got to 5 times more, that is called 1000 liters, or I can say 1 meter cube of hydrogen by the PEM water electrolyzer unit. Even though it is developed, we have to, the raw material will be always depending upon the foreign countries. If you go for the indigenous one, it is very fruitful for the Indian technologies. So this is the ultimate cell system. Now we are taking the energy from the sunlight through photovoltaic cell. You can see in the anode, oxygen will be collected. In the cathode, hydrogen will be collected. So this is the simple process of the PEM electrolyzer technology. So this is the graph will give the, no, this is only the technical graph. And finally, this technology was transferred to Indian industry. So this was, our technology was installed in Oman for the in the metallurgical purposes. And after that, we are now doing the solar powered PEM hydrogen generator. So as I told, we are getting the energy from the solar and electrolyzing the, that is called, we are getting the energy from the renewable sources. If you come to visit the SICRI, you can see this type of researches is going on in our lab. So this is, I am very happy to see that our technology is competent with the other international technologies. So major, if somebody want to do the research on this type of electrolyzer, you have to develop a more durable and less expensive membranes, that is indigenous one, and develop a long-lasting membrane and corrosion-resistant bipolar plates, and develop of durable, low-cost and active anode catalyst and cathode catalyst. So if you want to, still the researchers are going on in all the R&D activities. Someone, if you want, you can go in this angle for the research and activities. So as I told that you can, if the purified water will be sent to the electrochemical cell, then only the hydrogen will be get. So now the people are asking, why don't you use the seawater as the source? Because we have the plenty of seawater. So whether it is possible to get the hydrogen, that is renewable energy and renewable raw material. So both are plenty in our India. So the research is going on in this angle. That is, we are taking the seawater and we are electrolyzing. But it is not very easy to electrolyze seawater because the chlorine will be come out in the place of oxygen. So we have to suppress the chlorine and go for the oxygen. So this is the challenging one. This type of researches are going on. And also, as I told, we are going towards the non-noble catalyst and also the photoelectrochemical generation of the hydrogen. So these are all the up to production level. So the next one is the storage, that is called how to store. Suppose if you produce hydrogen, as I told, production, storage, delivery, everything was very important. Still, the storage point of view, the researches are going on. That will be converted to near-term approach and longer-term approach. Suppose you have to store it in a cylinder or cryocompressed, or you can use the metal hydrides or the sorbents or chemical hydrogen storage. So still, researches are going on which type of storage material is very efficient for the hydrogen. And one more hydrogen storage in US is underground storage. So in this salt cavern, the hydrogen will be stored. What is the advantages of this type of storage? Nowadays in US, people are storing hydrogen in the salt cavern because with these facilities, hydrogen gas can be stored for days, weeks, months, and even seasons to be dispatched on the demand as clean fuel for the carbon-free gas turbine power generation. So you can easily store the hydrogen in the salt caverns. So the storage capacity will be whatever you want to store, you can store it. This is the main advantages. Another one is the storage capacity. You can store even in gigawatt. You can see the batteries, compressed air store, pumped store, and hydrogen. You can store plenty of hydrogen in a single place. This is also the main advantages. Then you can go for the hydrogen applications. One is called production, still researches going on in the hydrogen storage, even still researches are going on in the hydrogen application. I can just touch upon only the fuel cells. That is the direct application of hydrogen in the fuel cell. You can get the clean energy. So why fuel cell is it is a versatility of fuel cell. You can get the hydrogen from either of the method, natural gas, coal, or ammonia, methane, whatever the hydrogen you are getting, you can use in fuel cell. Depending upon the source, you can make the fuels. That is alkaline fuel cell, direct methanol, molten carbonate, polymer electrolyte, phosphoric acid, solid oxide, like that. So many type of fuel cells are available depending upon the oxidant. So that will be very much useful for the multiple and versatile use like stationary, transportation, and other industries. So once the hydrogen will be produced as a fuel, you can use in the fuel cell for multi-purpose use. So now I can talk the renewable hydrogen role in the economy. Economy means it should be take part in the economy of the world. That is, this type of hydrogen economy was first proposed at the beginning of 1970s by the John Bockris. So you can see the hydrogen will be used for many places in fuel cell, and can used for the energy for the grid and chemicals, so many places. So definitely this renewable hydrogen will play a role in the economy of the country. For example, you can see the remote communication places, the hydrogen fuel cell will be used, and repeater stations will be used, and remote oil and gas pumping and weather stations, the hydrogen fuel cell will be used, and mining operations and villages and remote farming, everything where the hydrogen linked with the fuels will be used. And you can see this graph, hydrogen direct fuel. People are telling that this type of used for the transportation. You can see the the cost US dollars per kilometer will be going on reduced in the case of fuel cell. Definitely in 2040, the hydrogen based fuel cell will be the used for in the trucks. So that will be shown in that graph. So what India is taken initiative means those hydrogen fueling station by Indian Oil Corporation was started as a initiative, and this is the India's first hydrogen and hydrogen CNG station in Faridabad, and this is the first public Indian hythane, that is the mixer of CNG and hydrogen, was done by all or in trial basis in going on, and in the Indian Railways was initiated the hydrogen energy, that is Indian maximum speed of 130 km per hour, and like that they are kept for the some specifications. You have to go the Indian Railway specification used hydrogen as used for the energy purpose. So you can see the hydrogen based mobility in the cars and so many in the trains, trucks, buses, so many places hydrogen was utilized as the energy sources. Even the zero air vision in the entire world in flights and aeroplanes are going to be fly with hydrogen. So you can see the ultimate in 2023, 10 to 20 seater will be developed in 26, 2030 and 2040. The 200 seat flights will be operated by the hydrogen based fuel cell. This is the ultimate aim for the aviation sector. So this is the the model of the Berlin airport. So the complete hydrogen based energy. So they are taking the energy from the wind or solar, and they are electrolyzing and storing and send to fuel cell or whatever the thing, and the entire the airport will be only based on, even the flight will be fuel will be the hydrogen. This is the German ultimate goal in the hydrogen energy, and this is the in 2021 the hydrogen station opens in Silicon Valley of USA. The capacity is 1,600 kg capacity. So now all the petrol bunks are converting to hydrogen in the US. So the happy news is our finance minister in the last budget proposed the hydrogen mission in the union budget. This is the very good initiative for the Indian side, given the budget for the hydrogen energy. In the safety side, you can see the figures, in the 0 second, in the 3 seconds, in the hydrogen vehicle fire will be gone up because of the light weight of the gas, and in 90 seconds the gasoline based vehicles will be burned out, but the hydrogen based vehicles will be safe because of the lighter in nature. The hydrogen will be go up, the fire also will going up, so it is more safety to use the hydrogen in the vehicles. So the people are now the people are talking about the cost of the hydrogen, green hydrogen, but you can take the balance cost and benefit. So you can see the benefit means it is a energy generation, repurpose infrastructure. Suppose repurpose infrastructure means what I can say that you can use the same space and same pumping area. Only you can keep the electrolyzer and you put it in the vehicle. So that is the repurpose infrastructure. Avoid grid built out, clean air, eliminate greenhouse gases, and deliver diversity of fuels. You can use hydrogen as the multi-purpose energy. So if you're going on and see the benefit, the cost will be no more. So that is, you can see the balance. Always benefit will be more than the cost. So this is the comparison between benefit and the cost in the case of hydrogen. So this is the photograph. For one photograph is water and one photograph is the electrolyzer. The former president Dr. Abdul Kalam visited in 2012, appreciated our water technologies. In 2017 the former science and technology minister Harshavardhan visited. So both are appreciated, both water and the electrolyzer systems. So thank you very much for your listening for last 1.5 hours. So I need your insights and ideas and questions. So I can ready to take all the things from you. Thank you very much for your listening our research experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vasudevan. Fortunately, the participants benefited double promotion. Even a one lecture, you got taught 2 lectures, water as well as the hydrogen energy. Is a very wonderful, and participants would be benefited from your lecture. A few questions are already in the candidates from the registered participants. So please
Yes,
answer those questions. Jayashree Shahu, she is a KV Kolkata. Can we convert plastic into green fuel as a crores of tons of plastic wastage are produced per day in our planets?
Yeah, it is easy, but not by the method of electrochemical methods. So you can convert the plastics to energy, but from my knowledge, it is not by the electrochemical methods. That's why I can say.
Some other methods you can convert. Okay.
Yeah, you can convert.
Yeah.
That is
Okay, sir.
you can
Thank you.
convert all the plastic to heat energy. That heat energy will be converted to electrical energy.
Achha, good, very nice. Next is Ramanathan, Kendra Vidyalaya, Tambaram. Is it possible to use the source of green energy as an alternative fuel in the place of petrol or diesel for automobile applications? And the second one is how green energy can be utilized for our domestic needs, such as fuel for cooking instead of LPG.
Yes, both are very good questions. Now, the main goal for the green hydrogen is for the automobile purposes. So you can use the hydrogen either in the form of direct in the IC engine, or you can use the hydrogen in the fuel cells. So either both are possible in the electric vehicles. You can operate even the road vehicles and flights and trains. Everywhere hydrogen can be used. And in the case of domestic purpose like stove and other things, yes, now only people are started hydrogen gas because of the safety codes and other things. People are doing the safety codes. Once the safety code and everything was arrives, it will be very much useful like LPG gas. You can generate hydrogen from your house itself.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, Kursi S. Us, Kendra Vidyalaya, Mysuru. She is asking, how can we control the exploitation of ozone layer depletion instead of reducing the uses of CFC?
Yeah, but normally ozone layer is depletion is because of the carbon dioxide. So if you remove the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the ozone layer will be safe.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah. Next, Vivek Nanda Mishra, KV Izafur. He is asking, do we see the possibility of complete replacement of fossil fuel by solar energy or wind energy?
Yeah, it will take, as I told, it will take some more time.
Last slide already you were told from
yes,
Berlin.
Yes, Berlin. Okay. So it was now only the people are started complete hydrogen.
And next by Rituraj Pathak, KV Rajasthan. What are the problems and these proposed in the field of ecological innovations?
Propose the ecological innovations. So, but by because since we are using the green energy, so the ecological system will not affect. So we are utilizing only the nature, not we are not damaging the nature. So the according to ecological point of view, nothing will happen.
Acha. So without any harmful, okay?
Yes, correct.
And next two questions, Barushos Rao, PGT Physics from JNV. He is asking, why can't we take hydrogen fuel in fusion reaction to get light during night?
Yeah, it was, people are doing this type of fusion and fission reactions by the palladium electrodes, to get more heat and converting the energy. But very few places this type of researches are going on, sir. Not many places.
Many places. Okay, thank you, sir. Participants, you can any clarifications or questions, you can feel free to ask questions. You can unmute your audio, then you can ask the questions. Participants, any more questions you can ask freely.
Sir, may I ask something?
Yes, please.
Yes?
Sir, is there any new inventions that can replace plastics?
New invention, no, you can see the newspaper, they are using natural materials in the place of plastics, like the dried leaves and bamboo tree sticks. So like that, people are using in the place of plastic for the domestic purposes.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Anybody? Anybody is there for asking questions?
Okay,
So
sir,
there are, we are ending this session. I thank Dr. S. Vasudevan for his wonderful and thought-provoking new innovative idea on water as well as the fuel for hydrogen productions. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice presentation. And thank you for all the participants. Participants, please give your feedback. In already is communicated to the feedback form also. Please give your feedback, as well as the kindly subscribe the CICASA channels, CSIR Security YouTube channel. Thank you. Next we will meet on 29th Thursday 2 p.m. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye.